Hi, this is Dr. Stephanie Wautier, and I'm the host of Conversations with a Chiropractor. This is not a health how-to, but rather a conversation with some amazing people I've had the pleasure of being with on my journey of life. Think of it more like Tuesdays with Maury, a fireside chat, or chicken soup for the soul. Grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and enjoy this conversation with a chiropractor. Today, I am joined by Amanda Brunngraeber, and she is a business owner, a coach, a speaker, an author, a wellness consultant, and a healer. Amanda, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So I know that you are the busy mom of 3 teenage kids.
Yep.
But your entrepreneurial journey really began in 2008.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
What years were your kids born?
They were born in 2006, 2007, and 2012. So we were in the midst of those.
Some moms probably couldn't fathom starting a business during that time.
I didn't try to. Almost everything I do is because of my kids. In 2008, I picked up a camera and started taking pictures of them and found this really cool creative outlet for myself. It just kind of moved. So it wasn't like I was set out to start a business. It's just how it happened.
You were like, I want to take these beautiful pictures of my kids.
Yep.
And then that's how we met. You took some beautiful pictures of my family.
Yeah. That was a long time ago.
So your first business was as a photographer.
Yes.
And tell me how long you did that and how that bloomed. And
yeah, everything happened really organically. I also then started, how can I make this a business? If I'm going to be spending a lot of time doing it for other people, I need it to be worth my time.
Absolutely.
Especially to support my family. It just kept growing. I think I did photography through 2015, 2016 or so, about 8 years. It was a lot of fun. I still shoot a lot, most of it with my camera and most of it nature and farm animals and my kids now. I mean, there's lots of opportunity for that.
I see your pictures on social media and they're stunning. They're beautiful. I think every one of us living a life with busy kids wishes we could capture those moments so stunningly. So tell me how you got out of the photography business. How did you know it was sort of the end of that?
I had started entering the wellness field and I started using essential oils and joined a company called Young Living. And that grew really fast. Unaware that I had a deep passion for wellness to begin with, I would find myself doing baby sessions and wanting to talk about breastfeeding and want to talk about health things or different ways they could help position the baby and talking to mom. How are you? What do you need? How can you be supported? I was talking wellness even in my photography days. I thought that was cool. I didn't realize it was an inner passion anyway. That started growing and I started growing a community within that. I had a little less patience for what I could and couldn't accept from photography. And photography was a lot of nights and weekends.
Not good for family life.
My kids were getting older and busier, so I needed something different and we needed to transition. And it was a great transition.
At the end of that time, closing your photography business, did you just close it quietly? Did you reach out to people to say, hey, if you still need someone, did you pass the torch? What did that look like?
It was a pretty gentle transition. I had clients that knew I was going out. I had wedding clients booked out almost 2 years at that point. I honored all of those and just
didn't take new clients.
Yeah, I didn't market as much. I wasn't posting online as much and I wasn't talking about it as much. It was this gradual thing until people were calling and I was like, oh, I'm not available or whatever.
Yeah. So Young Living and the essential oil journey was what came next, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you said it happened really fast.
Yes.
And I read on your website that at one point, you and your husband's business called Brunngraeber Wellness with Love and Valor had over 12,000 Young Living members.
It did. It was huge and way bigger than I ever imagined it would be. Literally life-changing. From the business aspect of creating a big community, a leadership aspect of having people looking to me for how do I do this? How do I do that? And then also what coincided with that was this very personal healing journey. Having a business grow so fast and so quick caused a lot of my inner things that I had run away from surface really fast. And I'm also using essential oils, which work within the body and the emotions that cause me to face things or try not to face things that I had been avoiding.
When we have kids so close together and we're not sleeping and our body is physically taxed like to the nth degree, and now you've transitioned from one business to another while raising a family, it's very easy and sometimes essential that we almost dissociate from our bodies. It's so easy to put yourself on the back burner as long as you can keep putting your foot on the gas pedal, as long as your body will keep going, then we keep going.
The power of the body and the mind to disassociate, like there's parts of myself that feel bad about the disassociation because it's real and it did happen. But it was really a powerful survival mechanism at the time. And one that I don't want to work with often anymore. I want to be aware of that now. I am thankful for it in some ways. I wish I could change parts of it. But alongside of that, I'm also thankful for it. Because of what it taught me, it also allowed me to build fast. It allowed me to survive and create what I now know was I needed safety. I needed an environment around me that was very safe. And building businesses that provided financially felt really secure and safe for my family, for me. Having a marriage that felt safe, having my children feel safe, being on the farm felt safe, all these safety mechanisms that I craved deeply internally from childhood trauma. I'm aware of it because I had stuffed it so hard.
That is the beauty of healing and how essential oils can work with our body. I've been trying to tackle many books about this, like The Body Keeps the Score. Sometimes just, touching someone and I know, and maybe they even know, like this isn't because I vacuumed too hard or lifted something heavy. Like this is an emotional thing. Can you feel the stress in my shoulders? Like, and how brave and beautiful that you are like, I'm going to tackle this, especially as a mother. We don't want our children to bring some of the things to adulthood that we brought. I know it's overused, but that generational trauma. Right?
And, it is overused, but people don't realize the depth of what that actually means. Like, you were an egg inside of your grandmother. Like, to really think about that, like a female is born with her eggs already intact. That means when she was born, your mother already had you inside of her when she was inside your grandmother. That DNA transfer is so wild. And generational trauma that comes with that is very real because if you were inside your grandmother, then your grandmother was inside your great-grandmother, right? And so that generational trauma is actually really close and tight compared to what we would think. I'm an independent human being.
Right.
But really, we have all these other things underneath. And it doesn't mean we have to save it all, right? It's just because it becomes the awareness that we are more than just this singular human being in this world. We are also a result of all that has come before us, the good and the hard. It's not about trying to conquer the hard, but it's trying to come to peace with the hard, to be able to conscious awareness and grow from that, to have that consciousness, to say, wait, I want to do this different. I recognize that it might have been a survival mechanism that they had to use, or I had to use, that came before me. But what do I do now?
Yes. This is so big and deep and profound. And I even think that on a surface level, it's hard to think, well, my mother had me at 1973 and what was going on culturally and what was going on in the world and in her relationship with my dad and their marriage. Lately, I've been trying to give different people in my world a little more grace to really think about that. How did that feel? And how was that at that moment? And then to heal from it. Like, where did you begin?
I want to make sure I do not glamorize this.
Yeah.
Because it was really dark.
Yeah.
And it was a moment, maybe a series of moments, but I had one really deep moment, esoteric moment, if you will, of really, really dark. Like, is this where I want to be? Literally in my human body, is this where I want to be? And my grandmother, I could feel her presence come in. And she had been passed about 2 years at that point. And she said, Amanda, my journey was done. My work is no longer on that plane. My work is off that plane. Your work is in the plane, but that means you need to be there to do it. And you can't do what you're meant to be doing if you're not in that plane. You need to be here and you need to buckle down. And it was just this really profound realization of having something to do in the world. And like, what if the emotions and the suffering and the pain I'm feeling right now, the numbness, actually is my work? What
to tackle your own feelings in the current moment.
Exactly. Because I had pushed and strived and survived for so long and actually considered myself, I almost egoically held on to this idea that I was a survivor and it was my motivation. And I avoided all of the darkness. I avoided all discomfort. I avoided all my emotions. I avoided all of it. It was survival.
Wow.
Up until that point. Yeah. And I had it all. Like, if you looked like textbook wise.
Yeah. Oh, look at Amanda and her beautiful family and her beautiful children and her lovely husband and their beautiful farm. And doesn't she have it all?
Yep. And I was miserable inside because I was avoiding all of the pain. I hadn't come to peace with any of it. I hadn't been able to even begin to slow down. I'm thankful for the disassociation. I'm thankful that it got me to that point. I truly believe that those wonderful things that my life looked like were actually this really cool safety net that provided this place for me to heal.
Like, here's a big home. Like, let's think of it in a structural, real life, tangible thing. You build a home that is so safe, but you had to build it and then be able to afford for that door to lock and you to be in there and safe.
You could take that beautiful vision that you just gave and you could physically put it in my life. That's exactly what I did.
So was this at the height of your Young Living career, or was this on the climb of it? Because with that many people under you, people were probably expecting you to be everything, right? Like, hey, I need this from you. I'm struggling with this. So you were probably teacher, therapist, counselor, encourager. Like, are you having this esoteric moment during this?
Yes. Yeah,
wow.
Definitely. And only a few people knew what I was facing at that point because I was still having to try to maintain as much as I could until I couldn't.
Yeah.
The beauty with that was that at that point in time, I had created enough safety net financially that my husband had come home to work with me. He was a teacher in the school system and he came home for about 4 years.
Wow.
And worked Young Living alongside of me. We were able to redirect a lot of things to him during that time.
Nice.
And so that created another safety net. And so I wasn't doing as much. There was a deep desire from people to want to be coached in all these things. And that's when I realized I was really highly sensitive. And
like empathically sensitive.
And so I walk around with my spidey senses. They're always active. And so I'm really good at reading body language. I'm really good at sensing energy. I'm really good at just empathically feeling what's going around. Probably based on trauma from childhood, that it was a survival mechanism at one point. But leading a team, it was also became really helpful.
Okay.
And I could help coach to people's pain points. And because I could help discover things for them that I was feeling and they were feeling. Like, I could feel pain they were having in their body, in my body.
Wow. I do too.
Yes.
And sometimes I have just had to say, that's not mine.
100%.
That's not mine.
Yes.
But please, I think that you're much more aware of how to deal with that. So I want you to tell us, listeners, how you've managed it.
Yeah.
So you have this team and you're like, I empathically am feeling this. I'm feeling this pain in your body. And yet you're simultaneously trying to heal your own self.
I'm not realizing I have pain. I don't even know I have pain in my body at that point.
Wow.
I don't know me at all. I'm so disconnected from my physical body that it was like, what is happening? I was really good at living outside of myself. Really good. Because I was sexually abused.
Okay.
From 14. The years are really funky still. 12. He was arrested when I was 16. That would have been 2002. So I learned how to really disassociate from my body from that. Previous to that, my parents had divorced, and that was really traumatic and hard for them. And for me, it was not pretty at all. And my mom remarried, and he sexually abused in the house, groomed and then sexually abused. And so I had no ability to feel my body. I didn't want to feel my body.
Yeah.
And that's where the disassociation was so powerful. And then there's just some kind of engine within me that said, no, you go. Just go. Create something different. Like there was no ability at the time to recognize that I was suffering.
Wow.
And everything with the sexual abuse came out in one day.
Wow.
Public.
Oh my God.
Like on the radio, public. Like went public.
And you were named like this, or people would have known through just knowing?
He was named.
Okay.
And our location was given.
Wow.
But we were minors. And so that was like, now looking back, really traumatic.
Yeah. You're 16 years old when this happens.
Yep. And so coming forward, I've now built a big business where I'm seen really well and I can't feel anything about my body. Totally disconnected and in complete response to everything around me.
Like you've turned yourself into a robot.
My entire reality was crumbling because I was so numb inside. Working alongside the oils, they demand those things be moved. And demand's a strong word. I use demand because I was fighting it so hard. They actually do it very lovingly and coincide with our nature and nature's nature to create a really cool symbiosis. But to me, it felt like a demand because I was in such fight internally that I didn't know I was battling.
Like, I don't want to do this. Don't make me do this yet. Body, soul, spirit. Come on, I've got kids to raise and I have a business to run. Don't make me go down this road, right?
I had a moment there. I went to Sedona for a spiritual retreat. And I had already been digging through my stuff. I had already had that deep, dark night of the soul moment with my grandmother. Yeah. And I was starting to move things again. I went to a retreat in Sedona and I thought I was there for a business retreat. Within an hour of the retreat starting, my inner child showed up and got in my face around, this is what you're here to do. And I cried. I had to leave and I just sobbed and was like, I literally said, I am not here to do this right now. That is not what that's how much fight I had in me.
Resistance.
Yeah. And so it would be a long time later that I would even begin to acknowledge that. I was still acknowledging it, but I'm not aware. I was so unconscious.
And people around you probably didn't know this because you had become an expert at the shell and the surface perfection.
I had a really good mask. And I would say that I still use my mask now and then. Like, that's still a thing. And I think it's part of coming to peace with myself and my trauma is the reality that I need to wear that still. And having a really gentle understanding of myself. It's not about completely removing it. Yeah. I think that can sometimes feel really vulnerable and dangerous.
Oh, absolutely.
I would love to be able to live that way all the time, but it's not. There's sometimes it's okay to protect yourself. Yeah. And sometimes those mechanisms are there. That's how we survive as a human species.
Yeah.
That's part of being human.
Absolutely. So you come back from Sedona, you kind of say, I'm not ready to do this, to tackle this. I'm going to keep moving along. What's like the next I don't want to use the word obstacle, or the next bump that shakes you enough to be like, no, Amanda, that you have to do this? Or was it slow and gradual?
It was gradual for a while. And actually, life got really good again. We are traveling all the time. I was feeling a lot better. I was doing some of my spiritual inner work. I had coaches. I had help. I was even considering building a coaching business at that point already, because I had people
wanting to service it. Yeah.
And there was just some part of me that was like, you can't do this. Like, there was just major blocks. But life was good. So it wasn't like I had to create something at that point. And then 2020 came, and like the rest of the world, we all got turned upside down and things were in our faces. And I did pretty good through that until that fall. And then I started having anxiety attacks. And I had never had that. Like, my body's starting to scream at me. Like, Amanda, there is something wrong. And my nervous system was whacked, and alongside of a lot of other people, right? I'm not the only one experiencing that at that point. Our nervous system, even now, we're still, as a society, dysregulated from what happened then.
100%.
And haven't recovered.
Yeah.
And so that started happening. And I was like, okay, this is not good. What is happening? Why is my body rejecting me?
Yeah.
That's how it felt.
Turning against me. Why can't I control my body?
What do I have to worry about? I'm not in a big city. Our jobs were good. Young Living was at almost its absolute peak at that point because everyone wanted wellness products. We had the opportunity. We kept our kids home. We homeschooled for the full year.
You did.
Yeah. And so my kids they weren't suffering through some of the things. They had their own suffering because they felt like they were missing out, you know. And my oldest was right at her teenage turning point. So she thought she was missing out on everything.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Her world had come to an end.
Yeah.
Her mother was keeping her home. How dare you?
Pretty much. My body was screaming at me. I would slide through those next couple years. And then I was helping other people more. I wasn't doing anything official as far as coaching, but I was helping a friend. She had messaged me and said, Amanda, I'm really struggling with this. Can we get on a call? I was like, sure, no problem. We got on a call and we were chatting. I feel like if there's anything I do well, it's hold space for people and help them do their inner discovery themselves. And I just hold the container and help gently direct them to come to that own discovery themselves. And so I'm holding the space for her, and we get done and she goes, Amanda, who does this for you? And I said, well, I do. I do this for me. She was like, Amanda. And it was like this light bulb moment for me of, oh, this is probably not good. I can read all the self-help books. I had hired business coaches, but I hadn't hired someone who knew the body. Anyone that I had hired knew the intellect.
Yes.
Which was like, if I take a test on skills, intellect is my number one. That is where I feel safest.
Interesting. So, even though you're so empathic.
Intellect is my number one because it's what keeps me safe.
Safest.
It gives me all the black and white check mark. It was a pivotal moment of, how do I let someone else hold this space for me who isn't in the intellect and isn't going to help me try to build a business around it? It would be like a year later or so. I had reached out to a few different people who did EMDR because I had read The Body Keeps Score at that point. And I was like, I feel like EMDR. Keep in mind, I'm still looking for a quick fix.
Of course, we all are. Yeah. We don't have time to go down a craggly healing journey, not with as busy as we are.
No, not at all. At that point, I had done a couple breathwork sessions. I had seen some pretty dark things about my inner world. I had done a lot of meditation. I had other modalities. And I just wanted someone to heal me. You know, I just wanted to be free.
Yes.
I wanted to skip the cocoon stage and go right to having my wings and have them completely ready to just go. Like, I wanted to be in flight. Like, take me from this and throw me off the cliff, would you?
Yeah.
Because I'll find my wings.
Like, let's do this today.
Yeah,
Let's get this done.
I'm willing to make it happen. So I found a therapist and I was like, okay, let's do EMDR. She's like, oh, let's slow down a little bit. She's a trauma therapist. So thankfully she could recognize all my safety mechanisms.
Your strategies, your cover-ups, your masks, your ways that you've survived.
Yes.
Your survival mechanisms.
100%. And she could see that way clearer than I could. But she held such loving space to allow me to have my intellectual checklist of how I thought it was going to look. She allowed me to have that. She also did a beautiful job because alongside my intellectual checklist, I'm so spiritual, right? She allowed me to do things based on energy and spirit and all of that. She allowed me to meld both and just hold that container without being like, you're crazy. Because there was a deep part of me that thought that spiritual side of myself was crazy. Like I was waiting to be locked up because of the things that I've experienced and things that I've seen and things that I feel. How is that possible? And so she let me bridge that.
I'm going to ask you, on your website, you talk about Gemini, Sun and Moon, Scorpio rising.
Yep.
And then you say, and I give gratitude to God.
Yeah.
So for people who might think there is an all or a nothing, some things energetically, emotionally, spiritually are not acknowledging God. How are we holding these things together? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
We're going to keep talking about EMDR and I want to go into that.
Yeah, that's a hard thing. I was raised Christian. I was raised Lutheran, in fact. And I went for a little while of just rejecting all of it and being like, there's something in the religion that really is really striking me weird and feels off. Albeit my history, the man that was sexually abusing me was a pastor's son. And so he was my pastor's son. And so there was also some religious dogma in there as well. I already had this conflicting thing happening within me at that point, subconsciously. And it has taken me a really long time to realize as a human being in this body, I can't know it all, especially when it comes to God. Especially when it comes to using more than, what is it? What do we use? 10% of our brains? What's the studies? It's so small. If we start activating all of our brain, what is it capable of? And do I really think that my brain is less intelligent than a AM/FM radio? Or my brain, the human brain has created internet, but yet we deny that we could be telepathic? How is this possible? It doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense logically to me. And so it was so in my face that I had to trust it. And so part of me being human is I'm an experimenter. And that's what I've come to realize is that I'm multi-passionate and the best way I learn is through doing it myself. Every part of my journey is really an experiment of learning this human condition and learning what trauma is and learning what healing is and learning what evil is and what good is and what is God and what is perceived as not God. It's just like what I'm here to do.
I love that. I think that there would be very few people who have been through what you've been through, especially having that person in a religious position who could even come to the point of forgiving God.
Yeah. I think that's a really hard part of believing in God. Is believing that God is constantly moving us around like pawns. And how can you let hard things happen to good people? If I love you so much and you allowed this to happen to me, why? I don't see it that way. I see it as in my spiritual form, there's such a higher awareness of what pain and suffering actually is. And I think in that moment of darkness, it was like, how can I find the peace within the pain and suffering that comes with being human? Because humanness is, in order to embrace the wholeness within humanness, it's embracing both of it. It's embracing the light and the dark instead of running away from the dark, which we're all really good at. That's fear.
Oh, absolutely. Would you say that it was through this EMDR experience, through this therapist experience, that you were able to come to this? Or was that even before that?
I think I came into this world with that understanding. Does it piss me off? Yes.
Yeah.
Do I get angry about it? Absolutely. And is there grief and sadness and frustration and like I want to shake something or break something? Yeah, sometimes for sure. Because my human brain doesn't understand why there's suffering in this world.
Yeah.
My human understanding doesn't understand why I had to suffer.
Yeah.
And why my loved ones had to suffer.
Mm-hmm. Will
there ever be full peace in that? In my human form? I don't think there will be. Will there, even to the point that I've wrestled with this idea of forgiveness being the end all be all. And sometimes I think society says that we're supposed to forgive and just move on. And I call bullshit on that.
Yeah.
I have to forgive myself. Do I have to forgive the actions of an adult over a child? I don't think so. That's not my role as a child.
Yeah, absolutely.
To have that power to forgive, like I feel like I'm giving my power away and I'm forcing her to give her power.
Yeah.
I can forgive myself for everything that I hold personal. I can forgive myself for feeling like it was my fault. I can forgive myself for the safety mechanisms and the survival. That's where I can find forgiveness. And that's because I know of my light, of my God light within me as a fragment of God, of that understanding that it's connected. And that's where the hope is, that it's all connected, that maybe I can't fully see from this vantage point right now. And I just have to trust. Wow. And that's where my power comes in of what can I do now? How can I heal? How can I see myself more clearly? How can I see myself more clearly for others? I do believe there is good and evil in this world.
Absolutely.
I think there's some people that are really trapped in that and their scales are not balanced.
Yes.
And so there's an acceptance of I can be angry and I can have protective mechanisms.
Yes.
And I
absolutely.
can take my experience because I have gained the understanding of my trauma because I've allowed myself into it. I can say, oh no, we're not going there. I can stand up for myself. I can trust myself. I can also trust myself to ask for help. I can trust myself to know who is and isn't safe now.
Yeah.
All of those are the skills I've learned.
So this healing journey, you were like from the beginning given an amazing power and a gift to have this spiritual connection to God.
Yeah.
And when you started to tackle this with this other human, this therapist, and she was able to hold space for you before you even went into EMDR, it was probably a longer time frame than you wanted it to be.
I still see her weekly. And that I'm at like 2.5 years of seeing her every week. Like this is major. I call it like the onion. And I called it that for a very long time before I even knew that I had to do healing. Like this is layers upon layers. Yeah. And as I grow and evolve, there'll continue to be layers. I think that's one of the hardest things I've had to come to peace with is the reality is there won't be a moment totally free.
I get the award. I get the medal. I'm done. I graduated.
Yeah.
I'm done with this healing journey. Boom. Like that's such a Western culture thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
That is in me too. Like the checking the boxes, the what's the next thing, the end of our journey.
When do I get my trophy?
Exactly. Right.
And a lot of that for me was laced in perfectionism. One of my biggest asks was perfectionism.
Wow.
And still can be.
Yeah. It serves successful people well.
It really does. The reality is we're in these human bodies. We are limited compared to maybe a form we've taken previously or will take later on, but I'm choosing to be here and show up in it. And so that's when the letting go happens is like, I can't know all of it.
Yeah.
I can't know. And I'm going to make mistakes.
And trusting like the experience. Like, I think that's really powerful and amazing for you to be like, I am like the did you say experiencer, experimenter, or I am my own experiment?
Yes.
Like, my gosh, so many of us, we don't want to go there.
Yeah.
We don't want to go there. We want to, we want to go to work and have a paycheck and watch television and cheer our kids on at a game. And like the acknowledgement of not feeling yourself or not being aware of yourself. I mean, that probably will resonate with many, many, many people.
Yeah. And that is where my life, my multi-passionate course of life is taking me, is the realization, especially entrepreneurs, especially highly sensitive entrepreneurs. I firmly believe that highly sensitive people are going to be our next generation leaders. And they have been manipulated because we're so sensitive and because we're used to being outside of our bodies all the time and making sure that we are really good in these small roles until we start learning how to trust ourselves, until we start learning how to trust our bodies and recognizing our body has things to tell us as a mechanism for our survival. As we start to realize we have boundaries and it's okay to set boundaries. As we realize it's okay to piss people off by some of the things we might say. As we allow ourselves to make mistakes as highly sensitive beings, we have the ability to bring the power back into here and then expand. So these next generation, even our current generation of people, we're paving this way for people when we find our wholeness, when we can embrace our light and our dark. And we start realizing what it is that fuels us and what we feel passionate about. I've seen it happen where entrepreneurs who are floundering in different directions hit these dark nights and they don't know what to do next. They think they're broken. The realization is they forgot to come in. Helping people do that is where things are going.
This is now your next sort of like, and I hate to use the word business venture because we are talking so spiritually in such depth, but now your role where you're sort of putting some of your time and energy is helping entrepreneurs, facilitating this process, this progress.
Yeah.
Am I getting that?
Yes. Yep. While coinciding with their nature. There's such a deep part of me that doesn't want to skip the reality that we're in a human body. That we are human beings on a moving, breathing planet. The way that we ground in, like, I don't want people to go up. I think there's a lot of really cool spiritual coaches who do a really good job of helping people do the up. I've done the up and it served me. But what I really want people to do and help people do is to come in and really ground their awareness, anchor in, come back to their nature, to build from there, to create that foundation. And I think it's something most of us haven't been taught because we've been escaping.
Yeah.
We've been running away. We've been hiding because we're so afraid of our true inner nature.
When you say people going up or people, can give our listeners like an example or what do you mean? Like people who are like going to the Tony Robbins things. Is that what you mean?
I think up would be a good word for escapism.
Okay.
Even though it looks on paper like it should be what we're doing and the way that we should be doing it, it's another form of escapism.
Okay.
Like, for me, an example of that would be wanting that 10-minute fix of just launch me out and help me heal and make it great. And then I'm out. Yeah. And then I can, instead of 2.5 years later, like, I don't think everyone needs to do 2.5 years of trauma therapy. And we don't dig into hard stuff all the time anymore. Just yesterday, she and I talked about my business, where I'm going, my fears around it, and my desire for safety. That's the stuff that's coming up now. And how that's all related. And she's helping me put the puzzle together so that I have such a greater level of acceptance and awareness and self-acceptance, self-awareness.
How did you find this amazing therapist? I know so many people even ask me and I don't know.
Yeah. I waited a year. You have to have someone that you jive with, right?
Yeah.
And I needed someone I could trust. It's probably not a normal situation, but I did know her personally.
Okay.
And I don't want to name her just because.
Of course. And I'm not asking. Yeah.
She is local in the area. I'm so thankful for her. This is becoming, and I love that. There's so many more people saying, maybe I need support. Maybe I need help. And there are quite a few places opening in the Marquette area. I haven't used it yet, but I know there's betterhelp.com where you can get in contact with therapists there.
Yeah.
And so that's always, otherwise, I mean, you have to, couple things that I would look for.
Yeah.
Is someone who's done their own work or someone who can hold space. Because if I would have done what I want to do, and I did want to do it like 6 years ago, I hadn't done any of my own work and I didn't have a container to hold people in without putting my own understanding of what my container looks like for me.
And self-awareness is like a dot. It's not self-awareness. It's beyond self-awareness. Self-healing,
If I can't extend compassion to myself as part of the whole collective, how should I expand compassion to the people around me? Sometimes I think we're taught it goes the other way, that if we have compassion for everyone else, then they'll have compassion for us. And that is just not. When you're coming from a trauma background, you have probably lived in the outer world your whole life trying to avoid more trauma. You don't have any self-awareness or compassion for yourself. It's like complete self-sacrifice all the time. My brain was not wired for
compassion,
for myself, self-awareness, any of it. It looked like it because I was in survival, but really, I didn't know compassion. I was surviving some of the things I was doing, but it wasn't out of consciousness.
Yeah.
And that's two different things. There's survival, and then there's conscious self-awareness and self-compassion. They're very different. They come from different places in the body, even.
So as we sort of end this really amazingly beautiful and deep and vulnerable, I'm so grateful for you to share this with us. If someone wanted to reach out to you to hire you in their journey, how will they get a hold of you?
I think right now the best way is on Instagram.
Okay.
Amanda.Brunngraeber on Instagram. I have a website I'm building and trying not to drag my feet on. You know, there's still those survival mechanisms that play out where the perfectionism plays out. I don't want to underplay that I've conquered it all because I haven't, but I do know how to hold space and help other people. I'm helping myself at the same time, and that's a really cool part of the journey.
Yeah.
I would love to be an ascended being on the planet, but I'm just not there right now.
Well, I think it's pretty extraordinary to hear your journey and to hear you talking so freely about all of this. I think that this is going to be so inspirational for people and so encouraging, knowing that you've acknowledged this healing journey and now you're here and you're going to help other people in this healing journey. It's amazing.
Thanks. It feels really cool. It also feels really fun. And I know that it might sound weird, but
That's
it
so
feels
cool.
fun.
How cool that it sounds fun.
Yeah.
And that we can be passionate and excited about that, which I see that you are.
There's something really neat about holding the space for someone to fully see themselves. That's really cool. And that's people. It's also, for me, plants and animals and letting myself see them fully. It's all so related.
I definitely need to get on your books. I assume that you do Zooms, calls for people who are out of the area.
Yeah.
There's no geographic limitations to this.
I do have a studio in my home where I do some in person, but I also do Zoom online too.
That's wonderful. Amanda, will you spell your last name so if people are looking for you on Instagram, they can find you?
Absolutely. It's BRUNNGRAEBER.
Amanda Brunngraeber. Thank you so much for being a guest on Conversations with a Chiropractor.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this podcast, would you please rate it, review it, like, or subscribe? You can find me on social media at wautierwellness.com, Dr. Stephanie Wautier on Instagram, or Wautier Wellness Chiropractic and Massage on Facebook. And I'm so curious where your next conversation will take you.